What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Today, we're recapping Week 15 in the NFL season and previewing some Monday Night Football. Let's welcome in today's guest from the Extra Points Podcast Network. You can catch him on the -3 pod and Waiver Wired. It is Eddie Spaghetti. Eddie, how did you get your nickname? I just have to know. Or we just love spaghetti?
That's
I'm
a
guessing.
fantastic question. So my real name, birth name, government name, is
Oh,
Edward Murphy. So Eddie Murphy.
okay.
Obviously, I believe there's a famous actor that has that name, famous actor comedian. So he's been in a few movies.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't take claim to that one. So really, what happened was I moved out to from New York City to Los Angeles in 2016. Got a job with the NFL Network. Who did I
Mm,
link up with there? None other than Dave Damashek. So what he did in our group, our little podcast community we had there, was he would give out nicknames to people who work there. So he's like,
okay.
he met me and he was like, well, there's no way you're going to go by just Eddie Murphy. That's absurd. So it rhymed and I became Eddie Spaghetti, and then it caught on so that everyone in that building just knew me as Spaghetti. And then anywhere I went, I seemingly just always worked with Dave no matter where it was. So I just
Uh,
became Spaghetti. And then he was like, yeah, you should probably like update your social media to that. And I was like, okay. So I've just stuck with it. And I honestly, at this point, I'm just used to it. Like people just call me Spaghettis or Spaghetti, and I'm just respond to it. So it's better than when I was growing up and being made fun of for having the name of a famous actor comedian who I love, by the way. So yeah, I'm all
right. I'm
good with
sure
the
people
Spaghetti
were
name.
like calling you Dr. Doolittle and whatnot. What's so interesting though, I would have just assumed that you were Italian with a name like Eddie Spaghetti. Murphy
No,
sounds Irish.
I am as Irish as could be. Yes, so not Italian.
All right, so we are going to get into recapping the NFL, but I noticed that you're wearing a Rangers hat now, and you did mention that you're from New York. Rangers are kind of the only thing keeping people in New York happy right now.
The Tommy DeVito experience wore out. The Linsanity
Yeah.
phase of that has died with the bad loss to the Saints. That was getting people happy for a while, but you're 100% right. I mean, right now too, just going to the state of New York sports, Islanders aren't bad, but they're the second fiddle to the Rangers. Kirsten knows that, and when you go to like the baseball teams here, it's the big fight
uh,
over Yamamoto. Obviously, Yankees getting Soto's huge, but everyone's kind of tense right now with the meetings with the pitcher. So yeah, by far, I mean, the Rangers have been phenomenal. They're beating all the top teams. This team really just seems to have great chemistry at this point. Jonathan Quick is, in my opinion, the story of the NHL, a backup goalie,
yeah.
no
Yeah.
regulation losses. I don't want the President's Cup trophy. You don't want that cursed. You don't want to touch it, and because it usually means you're going to lose the cup. Most of the times, I know
Yeah.
Ovechkin and Crosby did touch it, and they did win. But right now, I am thrilled. But at the same time, Katie, we're recording this December 18th. It's a long hockey season. We have a lot of time
Yeah.
left in this season. We're
Yeah.
not even near the midpoint of the All-Star break yet. So, like, I'm very excited. I'm very happy. I like where the team is. No injuries, knock on wood, but long, long way to go. So I'm trying to like pump the brakes a bit.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 things that have hurt me in the past. I'm a San Jose Sharks fan, grew up in San Jose. Jonathan Quick has hurt my feelings more times than I would like to count, and, they won the President's Trophy a couple times, and they still never won a cup, so fully understand everything that you are saying. All right, so let's, move over into the NFL. We're getting closer to the end of the season where every game matters, 4 teams in playoff contention. Let's take a look, at the playoff picture after this weekend. You got the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens clinched 11-3 is their record. Then you got the Dolphins at 10-4, Kansas City Chiefs at 9-5, then the Jags, the Browns. The Bengals have been such an interesting story. Jake Browning has been absolutely balling out. I feel like he's kind of like a Brock Purdy 2.0.
Mhm.
Then you got the Colts, Texans, Buffalo Bills, both at 8-6. The Steelers 7-7. I do want to talk to you about the Steelers for 1 second. Obviously, Sheck is a big Steelers fan. We've got Mike Tomlin on the hot seat right now, and I think a lot of people are saying, "Yeah, he's never had a losing season, but how good is 50% for your entire career?"
Yeah, I never actually talk Steelers at all, so this is a good change of pace for me to finally talk
Okay.
about Pittsburgh on the podcast. No, I'm kidding. It's the weekly touch-in with the Steelers here. I jotted down my notes. I was like, they're going to go under 500. This is going to be it. I think they're going to go under 500, and this is easier said than done. And that's like, it's like a fantasy kind of thing or like a video game thing. Like, yeah, just move on from your quarterback. It's not that simple, but I think they kind of have to. I think we've kind of seen enough of Kenny Pickett. They had that
Yes.
one game kind of outburst, so to speak, without Matt Canada. Right now, worst record, with him, percentage wise, worst offensive output without him, points per game wise. So, like, clearly they need a offensive genius in there, and they need a
Mhm.
brand new quarterback room. Mitch Trubisky is not getting it done. They don't want to put in Mason Rudolph. Maybe we'll see Mason Rudolph. Who knows? But I just think, yeah, while Kenny Pickett doesn't turn the ball over, he's just not giving that spark. I do think there's also a kind of lack of talent on the offensive side. Like Deontay Johnson
Yeah.
kind of had flashes in the past, never really regained that. Pickens, people loved him in preseason. Like, what has he really done this year? Now, yes, you could blame the quarterback. I guess the one bright spot is like they kind of figured out how to use Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, but that
Yes,
defense is
finally.
pretty much doing everything for them. And I just think they need they need like a McVay type offensive line, a McDaniel type of offensive line to come to that team and fix what's going on there. But yeah, I really do think that's going to be the first year Tomlin's under 500.
And then maybe he's gonna be without a job. Now, we do know the Steelers like to hold on to their coaches for
Hmm.
decades, so it will
Yeah.
be interesting if they do make that move. Then you look at the Denver Broncos, who started out the season absolutely horribly, the worst pass defense in the league. They had 70 dropped on them, and then they really turned a corner the second half of the season. They're now sitting in the 11th spot at 7-7, same record as the Steelers. Then you have the Raiders at 6-8, and the Chargers at 5-9. Obviously, the Chargers just fired their coach, eliminated already the Titans, the Jets, and the Patriots. Oh, how the mighty have fallen for the Patriots. Not something we probably could have said 7 years ago. And then we look at the NFC, and I'm sure you know this. I'm a huge San Francisco 49ers fan. 11-3, baby, clinched the playoff, won the division, hat and t-shirt game. Very excited about that. Philadelphia Eagles on our tail there at 10-3. They, of course, play tonight. We're going to get into that game. Then you got the Detroit Lions, 10-4. What a bounce back from the Lions this week. Bucks, the Dallas Cowboys have clinched. We're going to talk about them a little later because it doesn't look like they're getting any kind of home field seating, which is a problem for them this season. Then we got a bunch of 7-7 teams. The Vikings, the Rams have really kind of rammed things up here on the last few weeks. Then you got the Saints, and then Seahawks, and so on and so forth. Eliminated Commanders, Cardinals, and the Panthers. I mean, Panthers are just god awful, but they did win this last week in front of hundreds of fans. All right, so let's talk about last night's or yesterday's games. Ravens clinched the playoff spot, as we just said. They defeat the Jags
Hmm.
23-7. It's their fourth straight win. Lamar Jackson threw for 171 yards. He led the team in rushing, 97 yards for the second straight week. The Ravens, unfortunately, suffered a really big loss, though. Keaton Mitchell, I was super bummed to see this out, likely with the season ending left knee injury. That happened early in the fourth quarter. Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol. I just saw he threw for just 64 yards, including a 65-yard touchdown to Jamal. What was your thoughts on this game? Because the
Hmm.
49ers play the Ravens next, and that's going to be very telling for both of these teams.
Yeah, that's the biggest game of the year. I think this game on the Jag side, the first thing is like how to stop Lamar when he scrambles, and it seemed like they were getting pressure, but they weren't
Yeah,
getting like the pressure into the sack. It was the pressure to move Lamar from the pocket, and then he just makes plays like he always does. I guess they're gonna be happy that they took Trayvon Walker first overall. He had a pretty solid game defensively. The Jags are just sloppy. I'm not sure if Trevor Lawrence is still banged up from his injury a few weeks ago. And then
yeah,
I know that they're like, oh, well, he practiced, he's looking better. But then even at the end of the game, like Collinsworth in the broadcast was like, yeah, he just looks like skittish. Like he's throwing the ball 5 yards short. I guess, maybe it makes sense now that he's in the concussion protocol. And then you look on the other side of things with Lamar. Well, first off, I'll start with the injury. Like they're obviously their bread and butter is the rushing attack. Having a
yeah.
three-headed monster with Hill, Gus the Bust, who's from Staten Island, shout out Todd Middle High School, and
Hey,
then having Keaton Mitchell, who was like their change of pace guy, who had an absurd yards per carry going on this year, and then that injury is going to be big for them. But I know the theme of that game last night, they were saying how Lamar is the pocket passer now, but I think without Mitchell, they're going to need him to actually run more. They did have a few
yeah,
design runs. They're going to be a tough team to stop. They lose, Mark Andrews doesn't matter. Isaiah Likely touchdown. He was a big threat in that game, and Odell seems to be coming on at the end of the season. So I think they have enough passing wise to succeed in the playoffs because it is a passing league. But I do
yeah.
think their defense is just good enough and their run game is just good enough. And the Jags are the team that's like, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs, but do you trust them to win a game? Like, probably not. That's unfortunate, but they just couldn't get on the same page with Calvin Ridley, and I just feel like ETN was a non-factor in that game. So it just the Jags, good team, solid team, will make the playoffs, but I don't really see any like deep playoff success. So
Yeah.
obviously, Katie touched on it. The game next week is paramount. We'll see who really is the top dog in the NFL between the AFC's best team and the NFC's best team. It's going to be quite exciting.
Very exciting. Early line so far, Niners laying 5.5. Consensus is around 5. It's at 5.5 on Caesars. I'll be interested to see how this line moves. I was checking this morning. It's something crazy like 85% of early money and some sharp moves on the 49ers right now. I can't, there's someone had tweeted me saying they think this will get to 7. I can't see the 49ers being a touchdown favorite over the Ravens. But like you said, I did feel like the Cardinals got some early success in their ground game against the 49ers in the first half of that game. The one thing about the 49ers is they just wear you down. We've seen teams come out in the first half and look pretty good, and then they just start to get gas because this team just punches you in the face in every single level. But I am worried about this Ravens defense, specifically their red zone defense, the pass defense. So we'll see what Brock Purdy can put together. Moving on, and this is really it's because the Cowboys are America's team, and they were pretty good. Had some really big wins there, certainly over the Eagles, but they were absolutely dominated by the Bills, 31-10. The Bills have now won consecutive games for the first time since their 3-game winning streak, which ended in October, I believe, like the very first day of October. They've gained some ground in the AFC playoff race. They just won't die. They're really looking like one of the best teams coming out of the AFC right now. They're ahead of Denver and Pittsburgh. The Cowboys, yes, they clinched a spot, but they have lost control of getting that number 1 seed. They've now kind of slipped behind the Eagles. Even if the Eagles lose tonight, which I don't think that they will, and we will get into that. It's going to be really tough sledding here for the Cowboys, and the Cowboys just do not play good at home. So for them to get the number 1 seed was absolutely paramount for them. But curious what you think of this Bills team, and are you worried about the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an idiot who picked the Cowboys. I thought with take
Like,
especially
we all
getting
have those weeks.
points. I thought that they would. I thought the theme of this week was the get right week, and I was mostly right on that. But
Yeah,
look, 2 major things went wrong for the Cowboys in this game, and you can't have both these things go wrong and expect to win. Number one is no offensive output. They're not. Dak was not playing well. Dak did not have 100 passing yards entering the fourth quarter, so that's problem number one. And then problem number 2 is they allowed a ton of rushing yards to Cook and
yep,
company, whoever else is back there. So you're not going to win football games giving up that many rush yards. You're not going to win football games where you have no offensive passing yards. You're not going to drive down the field. So the Bills did dominate them in every facet of that game. It is funny to see the shift that we've had on Josh Allen, who does turn the ball over quite a bit, even
yes,
multiple times a game, like leading in turnovers. And then now it's like, oh, you don't want to play them in the playoffs. I kind of agree with that. I think they are getting hot. I
yeah,
do think the Bills are still talented. It was an impressive win. And like you said, like the home road splits for Dallas is not pretty. I did trust his offense. It was clicking. It was firing on all cylinders. Even Tony Pollard was scoring. That was a big thing. But the Bills defense, which took some hits in terms of injuries this
yeah,
season, and they're still able to do whatever they wanted to that Dallas offense. They stopped them for sure. And I just think Dallas, I know they were dealing with like a stomach bug thing going on the team, but they just couldn't stop anything up the middle. So that's a huge cause for concern. And obviously, if the Eagles go on to win tonight, then every Cowboys fan is going to really hate their lives because you were like really this close to being the NFC East champions and you felt pretty good. You beat the Eagles, and then now you
right.
get blown out, you get dominated, and then watching the Eagles win on primetime kind of regain form, that won't be good.
Won't be good at all. I will say one person who I think has benefited the most from the firing of Ken Dorsey has got to be James Cook, right? I mean,
Hmm.
he went from having just 2 touchdowns through 10 weeks to, the last 3 games coming into yesterday's game to having a score in 2 of 3 games, getting 20 touches per game. And he had, a hell of a game last night, probably the best of his career,
Oh, yeah.
221 scrimmage yards, the most by a Bill since Fred Jackson in 2010, against a team that really hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher this season. So shout out to James Cook. Love his prop bets. That guy for an anytime touchdown seems to be the play coming into this. He had just a great, great game. And yeah, It seemed like Mike McCarthy was just in playoff form yesterday, making some bad decisions. The fact that they kept Dak in that game so late too, it's like, what are we
Mhm.
doing here in week 15? You're playing with your quarterback like that. You're lucky that he didn't get hurt. One other team I want to look at is the Texans. So the Texans basically had nobody on offense yesterday. They were without Stroud, they're without Nico Collins. Tank Dell, of course, is out. But they still were able to win this game in overtime versus the Titans. I didn't know that they'd be able to do it. Obviously, they hit a 54-yard field goal in overtime to win that game. Titans, as we mentioned earlier, are officially eliminated from playoff contention. The Texans are a step closer probably to ending their playoff drought. I mean, I love CJ Stroud, absolutely the best quarterback of the draft. I love D'Amico Ryans. I'm a little bit biased. I'm a 49ers fan. I just think they just keep making good decisions, but they're really banged up right now. CJ Stroud out in concussion protocol. Usually that's just 1 week, could be a little bit more. Can they survive without their quarterback?
Yeah, they got to be happy with the play of Devin Singletary. He kind of kept them alive. He had the touchdown at the end of the
Yeah.
game was called back, but they still got the game-winning field goal. So he's been a great player for them. When we all thought it would have been Damian Pierce, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean Stroud needs to come back for them to be relevant or to have any kind of postseason success or to get into the playoffs. Looking at Keenum's stat, I believe it was like Keenum was like 220 something, and I was like looking
Yes.
through it, and I was like, that's one of it would have been one of Stroud's like lowest totals this year, especially
Yes.
as of late.
Yes.
So you clearly need them. And the biggest issue, the reason why I knew the Titans were going to lose that game is because you're wearing Houston Oilers jerseys playing Houston, which should have been illegal. And it must stink for them too, because you have Will Levis, who had that great comeback win. He's all fired up on Monday Night Football, and you go and lose this game, and now you are eliminated. So that's a game that the Texans had to win because next week they're playing the Browns, which that defense is absolutely unbelievable. And that's a really good barometer to see just how good this Texans team is if CJ Stroud comes back. If it's Case Keenum, I'm sorry, I'm not picking Houston.
No, there was, look, the Minnesota Miracle was fun in 2018. But looking at him yesterday, like you said, yeah, you look at these numbers, you think, oh, 229, one
Hmm.
touchdown, one interception, rating of 79.5. Not that bad. But like you said, when you compare it to what CJ Stroud has been able to do, it's a huge drop. Now, they didn't have as many pass catchers, at his disposal. But I don't know if you saw JJ Watt's tweet where he was like, well, look, we won, we get the jerseys back. That's just how this works. Which I thought was really funny about the
They should.
Oilers. They should. They absolutely should. So, like you said, Texans have the Browns. Houston laying 2.5. This line obviously suggests that CJ Stroud is coming back because I think the Texans with CJ Stroud are a better team. And if they get some of their people back, than the Browns are now, this Browns defense. And look, I mean, the Browns have been pretty exciting to watch. It's been exciting to watch Joe Flacco, have a couple double touchdown games, touchdown pass games. Then you got the Titans versus the Seahawks. Seahawks laying 2.5. We'll see what this game is going to be very telling tonight too, for the Seahawks. But I don't know. I don't know. I'll wait and see about that game. Any early thoughts on Titans and the Seahawks laying the 2.5?
I would probably side with the Seahawks because we don't know if Gino's in question for tonight. I assume he's healthy and ready to go. I just think the roster is just a lot better in Seattle's side than the Titans side, and I think it's a bad. Will Levis got banged up at the end of that game too. Early lean for both those matchups, definitely Seahawks, and I got to be honest, I'm probably leaning Browns in that game. I really just do trust that defense. I trust
Really?
Flacco. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just think what they did. My hot take was if Justin Fields beat the Browns. He is the Bears starting quarterback next season. They were not going to take Caleb or whoever else in the draft, and he lost that game. I thought he would give them fits, mobile quarterback, but they figured him out. He had probably his worst statistical game of the year. I just think that's a scary
Yeah.
defense. Like if the Browns get in the playoffs, like every team that anything that gets them could be like, man, oh man, like I really don't want to play this team. And I think that Stroud, again, really good barometer to see how good CJ Stroud is versus this awesome Browns defense. And who would have thought the fourth quarterback for the Browns this year would have been probably the best one, or the one that probably gives them the best chance to win?
We've seen I mean, last week it was like we'd seen 53 quarterbacks. I think at this point it's been like 54, maybe even 55, 56 quarterbacks this season. Just like
Yeah.
absolutely, this is the season of the backup quarterbacks. And like you said, multiple teams are on their third and fourth quarterback, which is just so wild. Speaking of a backup quarterback who has been really, really good, Jake Browning. The Bengals kept their playoff hopes alive. They beat the Vikings 27-24 in overtime. Now, I had Bengals -3, so I sweated this one out
Yep.
just to have a push. I was happy with the push because really, to me, the Bengals should have lost this game by like 2 touchdowns in regulation. There was so much going on. There was so much up and down. But just looking at the stats, Jake Browning led the Bengals to a very impressive comeback, down 17-3 late in the third. And he had 3 fourth quarter touchdowns. I mean, just absolutely lights out, ice in the veins, a little bit of Joe Burr in him. The Bengals are pretty banged up, though. DJ Reader left the game with a lower body injury. Wide receiver Jamar Chase, which is huge, left the game with a shoulder injury. What can the can the Bengals stay alive, or are we finally both of these teams have just been beat up on tons of backup quarterbacks and just playing through so many injuries that at some point it's like I admire the fight, but it's going to end soon.
I guess I'm probably more bullish on the Bengals than most. Been saying this on any show that lets me speak that I think, Jake Browning leaving the Pac-12 was the all-time Pac-12 passing leader. Like, I think I hate using the Brock Purdy comparisons because no one is Brock Purdy right now. He's first in like every category, but
No one
I
has
think
Brock
that
Purdy's weapons, though, to be fair.
that's very true. Although the Bengals' weapons are pretty good, but I think
Yes,
that a lot
true.
of times we do, scouts just do miss guys, and I think Browning was probably a guy that was better than what scouts had him at, and he's showing us that right now. So number one, it was the Jake Browning revenge game, him yelling the Vikings let him
Yes.
go.
Yes.
And I think then you have that game, the T Higgins catch, one of the most memorable catches we'll see. That'll be in highlight packages going forward
Yes.
in the NFL's history. And then I also did bet the Bengals. I'm in legal New York now, so I could use the Caesar Sportsbook app and bet it. And I was and Stone Street, great drinking spot, and doing the holiday stuff with friends, and I was yelling like crazy. That was an awesome finish to that game. So while on the flip side, it was good to see Justin Jefferson back healthy and Jordan Addison him working in unison. Nick Mullins will start the rest of the way. The fun story of Josh Dobbs is sadly ended, but yeah, I think the Bengals winning that game, that does something to a locker room, even with like a Jamar Chase injury, which is pretty deflating. If it's not that serious and he comes back, still having Boyd, having Higgins, having
Yeah.
Mixon behind you, there's enough there, I think. And I think Browning is just a
Yeah.
smart guy, not turning it over. I think I'm not saying this is a title round team, but if they got in,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if they surprised somebody and won a game just because there's enough talent there, and the coaching staff's done a great job too. So that was a huge win for the Bengals, huge push for us, and that betting that game. But I do think the Bengals could make some noise, so to speak.
I think that Jake Browning has certainly played his way so far, and if he continues to do so into maybe a starting spot next year, if people aren't in the market to draft a new quarterback and want something with experience, has been fantastic. On the other side, as a 49ers fan, watching Nick Mullins yesterday gave me PTSD. And I think Vikings fans and maybe NFL fans who forgot about him, they got the full Nick Mullins experience yesterday. There are some incredible moments, and then there just are some massive mistakes. He threw for 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions, 2 very key interceptions. They showed him at the end of the game, and I think one of the announcers was like, he just looks despondent. And yeah, and that is the Nick Mullins experience. To your point, I have much more faith in Jake Browning than I do in Nick Mullins to carry
Hmm.
either of these teams through to the
Sure.
playoffs.
Yeah, that's no
Bengals at
question.
Yeah. Bengals at Steelers next. They're laying 2.5. I would go ahead and lay that 2.5 now.
Absolutely.
And then yeah, and then the Vikings at the Lions. Lions laying 3. Yeah, the Vikings. Look, their defense has been really good. They blitz the hell out of everybody. I think they have the highest blitz percentage in the league, which is crazy coming from someone like Wink Martindale who blitz the living hell out of people as well. But I would lay the points with the Lions as well. When the Lions are good, man, they are really good, and they seem to kind of shake that monkey off their back and get that run game going. The defense looked good. They weren't such a pass funnel.
Yep.
This Lions team, what do you think about them moving forward into the playoffs?
This was, like I said, the theme this week to me was the get right week. It was the Chiefs get right week. It was the Lions get right week. It was, a little tease, maybe the Eagles get right week. And that's what
Yeah.
happened. And I am an idiot again. I bet the Broncos +5. I said that even if
So did
the Lions
I.
win,
So did
even if the
I.
Lions
I
win it,
couldn't believe it. Yeah.
yeah, I just thought the two teams, one was trending downward, one was trending upward, and then Jared Goff had a phenomenal game. I mean, 5 touchdown passes, and like you're saying, when they figure out how to use Monty and Gibbs at the same time, they have
Yeah.
great weapons on the outside. Sam Laporta, an all-time game for a rookie tight end, and definitely have to help out a lot of fantasy managers in the first round of the playoffs. And yeah, their defense when they bring pressure and they get to the quarterback, then the defense does look good, and that's what happened in this game. So I think it's a real tough matchup for the Vikings next week. I would definitely lay points to the Lions as well, and I'm not sure if the Lions are the team that's like the last team I have not figured out. I think I understand them. I think that they're not a fluke, but I don't trust them in the same categories I trust your
Yeah.
Niners or maybe the Eagles. But I think
Yeah.
they're better than a lot of other NFC teams. I think they're just like that
Yeah.
weird like middle ground there. So they needed that victory, and I guess I shouldn't be shocked they won the fashion they did.
They're a frisky team, they're an explosive team, but like you said, they're not really battle tested. You haven't
Mhm.
really seen them overcome things, like, the 49ers obviously been good for years and years and years, and they usually suck in the beginning of the season, and they kinda come back and they get strong. There's just enough on tape for the 49ers and the Eagles that you know what you're getting with them. The Detroit Lions are still kind of a bit of a roller coaster, so completely agree with you there. I know you're probably gonna have to talk about this one quite a bit with Shaq. The Colts defeated the Steelers 30-13. I mean, I one of my best friends is a Steeler fan. She's like, I don't even know why I watch these games anymore. I'm like, look, I don't know why you do either. Gardner Minshew, probably we talk about all these backups, one of the best backups in the league, a career
Mhm.
backup at this point. 3 touchdown passes. Um, I mean, Colts now 8-6. They've won 5 of their last 6. They moved from the bottom of the AFC South into playoff contention, which is pretty crazy. I mean, I do think that their coach, Shane
Steichen, yeah.
Steichen, should be in the conversation for coach of the year. I mean, you think Anthony Richardson went down and what he hasn't been able to do, one with this team, who, last year was a complete dumpster fire. When you look at Jeff Saturday as their coach for, half of the season or the second, whatever, however many games. And Gardner Minshew is balling out. So one, I think Steichen, good vote for coach of the year. I don't see the Colts going far into the playoffs, but I could see them squeaking in.
So my hot take is that they would not be where they are right now if Richardson was still quarterback. I was kind of low
Mm,
on Richardson. I think that seeing him in college, like he has the physical tools, but he got hurt doing exactly what I figured how he would get hurt is rushing the ball. And he has to kind of take after like that Lamar Jackson mold of becoming more of a pocket passer and just finding a way to avoid the hits. And he got hurt before the season-ending injury too, which people forget about. So like this will be a
yeah,
common theme in his career. I think he was pretty raw. Watching him in college, like his big matchup head to head was the Will Levis versus him, and they lost. Like Richardson lost that matchup to Levis. So I think, like you mentioned, Minshew as being this like kind of career backup, but a good backup, and he just finds a way to
yeah,
get things done. He is mobile himself, but definitely could sling it. And they have, with his connection now with Josh Downs and Michael Pittman is a beast. The offensive line's playing a lot better, even with Jonathan Taylor missing time. They could still use Moss and whoever else behind them. So that's a big thing. So when the Steelers went up 13-0, they blocked the punt. And I'm like, oh wow, I guess I was wrong in this game. I picked the Colts. I thought the Steelers would struggle again, and then giving up 30 unanswered points when your defense is supposed to be your strong suit, and then also your offense not being able to score even a field goal the rest of the game. Steelers have a lot of problems. Like I said before, I think they're going to finish under 500. That quarterback room needs to go. They need an offensive mastermind. And your best players on defense, T.J. Watt, Micah Fitzpatrick, they're not getting any younger. So they have to act
no,
fast now because they are in like this kind of win now mode thing. So not fun for them. But I think if you're the Colts, that the Colts are a team if they got in, like I could see them like the upset special. I could just see like a
yeah,
Gardner Minshew. I could just see a Minshew mania thing again happening in the playoffs. Like he'll find a way to beat a really good team. Like if they match versus like the Chiefs, I could definitely see them beating the Chiefs like in a
yeah.
crazy all time game. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I could see them squeaking out a win, in the wild card round. I don't
Mhm.
I don't see them getting very, divisional round. I'm
No,
sure they get knocked off by one of the
yeah,
big dogs. But yeah, no, I would agree with you. And Anthony Richardson showed some signs of he's got to learn how to slide though. He just did
Yeah.
not protect himself well at all, but he was a lock for an anytime touchdown there for a few weeks. So I loved betting on that. We are going to take a quick break here and we come back. Mox locks for Monday Night Football, the Battle of the Birds, Seattle and Philadelphia. Don't go anywhere. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words, Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the type of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. 21 and over must be physically present in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming, or Washington, D.C. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited. Know when to stop before you start. Gambling problem, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, affiliated with Harris, Philadelphia. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Or in Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Or West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Colorado, D.C., Nevada, Wyoming, Kansas, affiliated with Kansas Crossing Casino. Call 1-800-522-4700. Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Louisiana, call 1-877-770 Stop. Licensed through Horseshoe, Bossier City, and Harris, New Orleans. Massachusetts, if you or a loved one is experiencing problems with gambling, please call 1-800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org for 24/7 support. Michigan, call 1-800-270-7117. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE New York 467-369. All right, welcome back to Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook. It is time now for Mox Locks with Eddie Spaghetti of the Extra Points Podcast Network. All right, so looking at these lines here, Eagles are favored -190 on the money line. The spread is 3.5, and the total is 45. If we look at some of these trends here, Philadelphia has not covered the spread and is 1-2 overall over their past 3 games. I was also reading a stat here somewhere that Seattle has pretty much owned the Eagles every time that they have played. Now, there's so many question marks going into this. Jalen Hurts has an illness. He did not travel with the team. He traveled separately as not to affect anyone else. Apparently, it took a dip. Haven't seen any updates. This is about 11:30 a.m. on Monday. So haven't seen any updates on how he is. It makes this game very difficult to handicap. Geno Smith, too, also listed as questionable. We may see Drew Lock. You seem to be on the side that Geno Smith is going to play today, which would be a huge get for Seattle. Seattle is not, they're not out of the playoffs, but mathematically it's kind of impossible or very hard for them to get in. And the Eagles have a 0 margin for error if they want to, compete with the Niners for this number 1 overall seed, which of course is so important in the playoffs. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, if I had a pick right now, you said 11:30 East time recording. Well, number one, Jalen Hurts is definitely banged up, like originally from his
Sick.
other injuries
Yeah. Oh,
all
yeah,
the
true.
all year long. People have been hinting at it. They're like, well, maybe Mariota should just play. We give him a break. I definitely think he's dealing with lingering injuries, and then now you throw an illness on top of that. If I had to guess, I mean, they're like, he's traveling alone. They're IVing him up, and he's going to take his Dayquil and his emergency packets, and he'll probably try to get it to go because the Cowboys loss is huge. So like with the Cowboys losing, the Eagles are like, all right, we win this game. Like we're sitting pretty right now. So I think Hurts will do what he has to play in this game. And then the flip side with Drew Lock, if Drew Lock goes over Geno with the groin, I think it definitely lays into like the favor of the Eagles here. Even if Geno plays with a groin, he's not going to be as mobile if he's dealing with that injury. And I just think like they're a team that we thought could have been flirting with the playoffs,
Yes.
and they're not as good as they should have been. I think that their rookies, JSN, Charbonnet more so than JSN has more of an impact, but I thought they would have a bigger
Yeah.
impact with that offense, and it hasn't really been there. I thought the addition of Leonard Williams from my Giants would have made the defense even better, but I just think the Eagles are just the superior team, and I've been saying this week to me seems like the get right week for teams that kind of
Yes.
needed it. The Lions needed it, Chiefs needed it. It's the Eagles' turn now to get that victory, to get back in the win column. Because if you look at their this season, they started off 5-game win streak, bad loss to the Jets. All right, whatever, it happens. No teams go
Hmm.
undefeated. Then another 5-game win streak, and then back-to-back loss. Like, do we really think they're going to lose 3 straight games? Like the Eagles that were very close to winning the Super Bowl are going to lose 3 straight games? Like, I don't think so.
Well, one, I agree with you, but I didn't think the Niners would lose 3 straight games, and they definitely did, and I think health is a big part of this. You know, the Eagles have been banged up, particularly in their secondary. They've been, like a pass funnel,
Mhm.
recently, which has been really bad for them, but I like, to your point, though, I mean, I had taken last week when I looked at Monday Night Football, I took the Eagles double result. It was at even money. Now, this was before the news with Jalen Hurts. I don't know how I feel about it now if Jalen Hurts doesn't play. What I do feel good about is a Hurts touchdown. Now, this is on Caesars, it's heavily juiced. It's like at minus 178. Shop around for this line, people. You can find it. I think the best I found is at minus 120. We don't know what we're going to get from Jalen Hurts, but we do know that he's going to get a tush push. The Eagles have decided that Jalen Hurts is their goal line back. I mean, that's just is what it is. And honestly, he doesn't have to do too much because they push him into it. He's got 12 rushing touchdowns this year. 90% of those, I believe, are tush pushes. So shop around again for this line. But if Jalen Hurts does play, I don't know about his passing yards. I don't know about any of those things because we don't know what we're going to get. But I know that they're going to push him over the goal line if he's in this game. So that is one thing that I like. What's a second bet that you're looking at?
Yeah, so obviously, I am laying the point. Not taking Eagles money line. For those who are wondering,
Yeah.
listening to me, I am laying the three and
Yeah.
a half there. Another bet I like a lot, and you kind of touched on this was I am picking the Eagles, but the Eagles definitely have some flaws. Most notably, giving up the second most touchdown passes in the NFL. Only team worse than them are the Commanders. So I believe
Yeah.
they're sitting at 29 touchdown passes allowed. DK
Yeah.
Metcalf has scored 4 touchdowns his last 2 games. I think no matter who's playing quarterback, if it was Geno Smith, Drew Lock, or myself, we could find DK in the end zone. I think it's plus 150 right now. So I like that a lot. I do think that Seattle won't. It's not going to be a blowout. Seattle will score. They're home, one
Yes.
of the best home field advantages. I think it'll be a
Yeah.
solid game from Monday Night Football, which is what we all kind of want, a good game. So I think he'll score. He'll be the reason why, regardless of who the quarterback is there. So I like DK plus 150.
I love that. Obviously, a big part of the Eagles' game plan is going to be to get under his skin. We saw him get ejected last week with the 49ers, and
Hmm.
he is one of the he's like the Draymond Green. I mean, obviously not like the Draymond Green. Nobody's like Draymond Green because people aren't safe when he is on the court. But you can get under his skin and you could get him ejected or to do some things that will cost his team. So you know that they're going to be pecking at him. But I do like him for a touchdown, especially at that plus 150. I'm going to look at AJ Brown again. It's really hard to do a lot of these props when you don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to play and what he's going to look like. But I'm going to take him over his receptions at 6.5. You can find this at minus 113 with our friends at Caesar Sportsbook. He's had at least 7 catches in 9 of 13 games this season. He's been targeted 35 times in the last 2 matchups alone. He's had at least 8 targets in 11 games this season. And when that's happened, he's had at least 6 catches in all of those but 1 game. And the Seahawks defense has given up some pretty big numbers to opposing wide receivers this season. They gave up the 8th most receptions in the league and the 7th most completions per game. So I think this 7 again, it's high. It's at 6.5. But looking at the body of work of AJ Brown, that this team has a 0 margin for error. Even if Mariota, which I hope not, is at quarterback, I still think that AJ Brown gets a majority of the targets in the work. So I'm gonna take him over the 6.5 receptions.
I'm with you on that. I like that bet a lot. AJ Brown, I think, is one of those receivers who is like quarterback proof almost. We were talking about the Titans at
Yeah.
length and how they were eliminated. It's like, well, you know how you could help not get eliminated from the playoffs is like don't trade AJ Brown. That may go down as like one of the worst trades in NFL
Yes.
history, and it shows you what made like Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. He wasn't a super highly touted
Yeah.
guy. And then what do the Eagles do? Harry Rosen brings in a
Yep.
top end receiver, pairs him with him, and then look, they make magic. It's like that just make your quarterback's life easier, and they did that in the Eagles. So I do think that AJ Brown prop should hit regardless of who plays there. And I guess for my last one, another Hurts bet. This one is really easy if he doesn't play, but Hurts under 31.5 passing attempts all year long.
Mm.
Katie, I've been looking at. I think certain lines are weird when it comes to either quarterback rushing totals, not for like the Lamars, the Jalen Hurtses, the Fields, but like the other guys. And I think with the passing attempts for the certain running quarterbacks also kind of are easy to hit. And I think when you look at when Hurts plays, he's gone under in 4 of his last 5 games. And he's gone over in 2 of 3 of his losses. So when he's chasing, he'll throw, but I think they're going to win. So he's going to throw the ball
Yeah.
less. Also, not practicing, that kind of means that he's going to have to run the ball more. I feel like they're just like their packages they want to install versus the Seahawks defense. He probably is not up to speed with them yet. Because he hasn't really been with the team. So I just think that, they're going to be ball control, run the clock
Yeah.
out, milk the clock, a lot of rushing
Yeah.
plays from Jalen Hurts. And I think that he'll still be in that upper 20s, even like 30, 31
Yeah.
mark, but
Yeah.
under 31 and a half, minus 127. I think if the Eagles are in control of this game, he will safely be under.
I love that. I hope that the double result I put in a week ago ends up hitting on this one. I am looking at their kicker though, Jake Elliott over. Well, I love a kicker prop on Monday night, especially because we know these are historically lower scoring games and touchdowns are hard to come by. So I'll take him over 1.5 field goals made. He in the last couple of weeks have gone 2 for 2 on field goals attempted and field goals made in his last 2 games. He's made at least 2 field goals in 85%, or excuse me, 58%. 85 would be crazy. 58% of games played. He's not Justin Tucker here, although Justin Tucker has missed some pretty easy field goals for him. But look, Seattle has been pretty friendly to kickers. They've allowed opposing kickers to make at least 2 field goals in 4 of their last 6 outings. And look, 2 weeks ago, you look at this Dallas game, Brandon Aubrey, he converted 4 field goals against them. So Monday night, lower scoring, possibly 2 backup quarterbacks or 1 backup quarterbacks. We may see some field goals. And so I'm going to go ahead and take Jake Elliott over 1.5.
Yeah, I like that. I think the defense on the Eagles side will do enough to stop them, keep them in. I'm sorry, they'll do enough to stop the Eagles, keep them in field
Yeah.
goal range, and the range that Elliott has is
Yeah.
absurd. And even if it's in Seattle, and I'm not sure what the weather is right now, his leg is just good enough. He's accurate enough. That's a home run bet. I think even his kicking totals like 6.5 points too, like over point totals. I'd probably even look at that as well, just because I think
Yeah.
he is one of the truly underrated kickers in this game. The last X amount of years he's been in the league dominating.
Well, the other thing is too, is you think about Lumen Field and the Seattle fan base, how loud it can get. There's a lot of false starts. There's a
Mhm,
lot of moving back where
mhm.
sometimes you think you can convert and then you got to move back and then you got to kick the field goal. So as much as I don't love the 12th man as a 49ers fan, they are one of the fan bases that have the capacity to affect games, certainly
Sure.
with the false starts and being loud. So
Yeah.
love that prop. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, you've got a lot going on with the Extra Points podcast. Talk to us a little bit about some of the shows that you're on, some of the shows that you're producing as well, and where we can find you.
Well, thank you, Katie, for having me on. It was a pleasure. I'd love to come back anytime. And I would say, number
Yes.
one, just follow everything Extra Points Pod at -3pod on Twitter, plus Extra Points. We have the Instagram, Facebook page where all our video and clips go up, YouTube as well. If you're on the YouTube, watch the -3 15-minute pregame show every Friday. We post it, just previewing the best games of the week, and plus giving us all our scores. And it's myself, Dave Damashek, and Kevin Hench. So that's a lot of fun. And then obviously the rest of the shows, we have Trendy going 3 times a week with Toby Mergler and whoever the guest is. A great fun
I've
game
been on.
show. Yes, you have been on. It's just a fun matchup, a change of pace from our shows. We have myself and Jen Piacente on Waiver Wire giving you all the fantasy updates. We are now going into the second round of the fantasy playoffs, so exciting times for us. Lemon Pepper Parlay with Mark Gunnels and Martin Weiss.
Love
Great
them.
show as always. Chiefs fan Mark Gunnels definitely going to be happy, and Saints fan Martin Weiss probably also very happy beating my Giants. And am I forgetting anything else? Oh, Covered in Glory with Brett Coromanos and Toby Mergler going over all the soccer stuff, Premier League stuff, if you're into the other football. So definitely give that a listen. And then Extra Points with Dave Damashek and the very, very funny comedian Sarah Tiana. A lot of fun each week on Wednesdays they go. Just breaking down the funnier stuff in sports instead of the
Yeah.
hardcore X and O's. So we got a little bit of everything going on in Extra Points, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah, my friend Will Brinson is going to be joining that show today. One of my
Mm-hmm.
co-hosts for the Pick Six podcast. Going to be really, really funny. Love seeing Sheck and Brinson together. Just such a duo. So make sure that you guys check out that episode and all of the episodes that Eddie Spaghetti just let you know, not to be confused with Eddie Murphy. This is Eddie Spaghetti. Thank you again so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social at Moxie Bets, and we'll see you next time.